Hey, true believers, Chris Matt coming at you today with Whiz Comics Issue 2. This is the first appearance of Captain Marvel, and I wish this was an original copy, but, it is what it is. I appreciate that DC, at least on this reprint, went out of their way to at least make it look original, except for, of course, putting $6.99 and then, of course, the barcode here. But I'm glad that they did put a Fawcett publication. And there's probably no way in hell I'll ever be able to afford an original copy of this, so being able to get it for $7, yeah, I'm happy. Because, I mean, from February of 1940, forget about it. I don't think I'd be able to afford that. And, of course, this was Captain Marvel before Marvel started playing the fighting game with DC, and he just strictly became Shazam, so it is what it is. I'm always going to call him Captain Marvel because I just don't care. And then, of course, Mary and everyone else is the Marvel family. Now, this part, because in these old books, they would have your primary character and then a bunch of backstory, like backup comics, sort of like how Marvel Presents is. So, for this one, the writer was Bill Parker, the penciler and inks were C.C. Beck, and the colorist was Bill Parker, and apparently the editor was Bill Parker as well. And it just sucks that back in the day that the DC and both DC and Marvel didn't really think about putting, crediting their artists, but of course they were just pounding stuff out, and then just, I don't know, it just kind of bothers me in that sense. But I'm glad that DC shaped up, and I'm glad that Stan Lee kind of whipped that into shape over on Marvel. Now, for those of you who've seen the movie, you see that Billy Batson was an orphan looking for his mother. And then Jeff Johns, is based off of Jeff Johns' New 52, which I really like. This one, it just shows that Billy starts out being a paper boy. And they go, "Paper, sir? Why aren't you at home in bed, son?" "I have no home, sir. I sleep in the subway station. It's warm there." "Follow me." Yeah, because that just seems legit. Trench coat, hat, and he goes, "Follow me." Yeah, stranger danger. But anyway, this man leads him down to the subway, and this is where we see the train station again, which I'm glad that they've kind of kept through all the years. It says, "Suddenly a strange subway car with headlights gleaming like a dragon eyes roars into the station and stops. No one's driving it. Have no fear. Everything has been arranged." Okay. And then this is where Billy is brought to, I'm guessing, the Rock of Eternity. It says, mustering his courage, the boy enters an ancient underground hall, carved out of solid rock, grotesquely lighted by flaring torches. And we see the 7 deadly enemies of man. And then this is where he meets Shazam. He's like, how did you know my name?" "I know everything. I am Shazam!" A huge black cloud, a blinding lightning flashing, a deafening peal of thunder form out of nowhere as the old man speaks his name. And then here we get what's called the historama. Yeah, this is the 40s, don't think too much into it. But it shows Billy's backstory, how he was adopted by his uncle after his parents passed, and essentially his uncle kicked him to the curb so that he could take his father's bonds and take all of his money. And so that's kind of a difference as where we see in the movie where his mother just kind of dumped him because she wasn't ready to have a son, which I'm glad that they sort of updated that because that's very much an issue in modern day, which, what happened with Billy here, that still happens a lot, but not as much as where a lot of kids are dumped in modern times. Now, this was weird because I like how, again, in the movie, and I think it was in Jeff Johns' run as well, of Justice League, where the wizard was dying and he needed to pass on his power, which is sort of what happens here, but right here it says directly above Shazam's head, a massive granite block weighing tons hangs from a slender frayed thread. Thread! Yeah, we're going to start calling it a thread. I'm Mike Tyson. If the thread broke, the granite would crush the old man to powder. And the thread is almost worn through. All my life I've fought injustice and cruelty, but I'm old now. My time is almost up. You shall be my successor. Merely by speaking my name, you become the strongest and mightiest man in the world, Captain Marvel. And then this is where he first speaks the name, gets his power, and then as the old man goes, through the blinding flash of lightning bolts, Captain Marvel sees the granite block fall on Shazam. What the fuck? When I was reading that initially, I'm like, well, fuck, why doesn't that granite block just not say Acme on it? I mean, come on. But again, like I just said, it's the 40s, so try not to think too hard into it, but it's so cheesy. Now here, Billy goes back to selling papers after he kind of wakes up and he's like, wow, was that a dream? So he just goes back to selling papers like, whatever. And there we see maniac scientist threatens U.S. radio system, demands $50 million. Now Billy thinks that he has a beat on it. He goes to the radio station to try to talk to the boss. Say, this is a serious matter, boy. I'm in no mood for joking about it. You better go before I lose my temper. But Billy's like, all right, I'll go. But if I find the Phantom's laboratory, will you give me a job as a radio announcer? A job? I'll give you anything you want if you find this madman. Now get out. I can't waste any more time listening to this nonsense. So, plot point, pay attention. Because of course he uses his Shazam powers to find out how these guys are going to wreck the U.S. radio system. And then this is where we get the first appearance of Savannah. And I'm really glad, again, movie and modern comics, they made him a little more, debonair. Because here, he looks like a rat. The fools, they wouldn't pay what I demanded. At midnight, we will drive every radio station from the air. Forever. And of course, in true corny comic fashion, all's well that ends well. It's fun, again, but I'm glad that these comics have grown from just being, little comic rags, as people used to call them, or the funny pages. And you can see why they were just called the funny pages, because there wasn't the thought of storytelling like it is nowadays. So I'm glad that these matured. Now, as I said, there are other backup stories. I kind of flipped through them. I was not impressed. The one that I did stop and read was called Golden Arrow. Now, this book came out in February of 1940. Ollie, Green Arrow, and Arthur, Aquaman, they didn't show up until 1941 in Fun Comics. So this predates Green Arrow and Aquaman. And the reason I say that is there's this brilliant scientist. He comes up with the way to, what does it say? Hold on. Paul Parsons, brilliant young chemist, finally perfects a new gas which he believes will revolutionize lighter-than-air transportation and non-inflammable, easily manufactured in huge quantities at small costs. And so what he does is he wants to sell it to the U.S. military. Bad idea. Anyway, so he goes, him and his family, his baby and his wife, they go to do a balloon ride across the U.S. to show that it can be done. And everything is going as well as they think that it can. But there's those that are greedy that know what Paul Parsons is doing. And of course, just like in any comic, tragedy strikes. The Parsons child, whose name I believe is Roger, is orphaned. Now, I don't want to get too much into it, because if you guys can get a copy of this reprint, I want you to read the story. But there's evil men who wanted Parsons' formula for themselves. Now, the kid is saved by Nugget Ned. And he looks so much like the Beverly Hillbillies. What's his name? Ned? Or Jed? I can't remember. Feel free to make fun of me down in the comments. But this man takes the child to raise on his own. And this guy Roger becomes sort of a Paul Bunyan type character. He's able to out wrestle cubs, outrun deer, and then becomes very good with a bow and arrow, taking out rattlesnakes and whatnot, and eventually is able to saddle his own stallion. Nugget Ned does not waits until he's old and on his deathbed to finally tell him the truth about who he is and what happened to his parents, which leads Golden Arrow on a revenge against the people who murdered his parents. But all that kind of leads into, I guess, if there was a few comics that were released through Whiz Comics, and I think there was a business endeavor with DC, and DC released some Whiz Comics as well. So it's kind of a cool idea. It's more of a Western Green Arrow film. Like I said, Golden Arrow predates Ollie, but Oliver Queen, when you read the old Silver Age books, they very much are more akin to Batman's origin, being this rich man and having a ward, etc., so forth, and that's a whole nother thing. But it's a cool concept, kind of a Lone Ranger type thing. And then, like I said, there's more stories. I flipped through them, and they didn't stand out to me like Golden Arrow did. So, guys, I would definitely recommend, if you don't have the duck hits like I do, to pick up an original copy. This is definitely one you want to put in your collection, be it a reprint. I know the reprint word sounds kind of bleh, but to have this in there and be able to read the first appearance of Shazam, corny though it may be, and then when you read it, how Billy just very much has that old kind of Archie, Dennis the Menace, Casper comic look, you can't get around that. It is what it is. So good reading all around. Plus, just to have this piece of history in my collection makes me happy. So if you've enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever you like to pick up your comics. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Definitely helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little whiz bell next to subscribe, that way we can upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with y'all down in the comments and across our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.